Welcome everyone to Passive Cash Flow for Life through Multifamily. Thanks so much for joining this. This is Teaching Tuesdays. We have been doing this for over a year now. Every Tuesday, we put together some sort of value add teaching about multifamily. Either Nicole, most of the time, or myself, sometimes actually teaches. And Nicole has over 30 years of experience. I'm getting closer to 8 or 9 years of experience, and everything I learned from her. And she actually put a course online called Passive Cash Flow for Life. So hopefully this is an introduction to multifamily for you. And if you have an interest and would like to see the whole course, please go to passivecashflowforlife.com. Or you may want to watch a couple of these. This is also on our YouTube channel, and we'll put all that stuff up in the chat. But Nicole is teaching today on mobile home parks and I don't even know how to say it, condoize them. Is that right?
I guess that's a word. That's as close as I came for. I made it up.
Okay, perfect. All right, it's all yours.
All right. So that is what we're going to talk about today, how to turn a mobile home community into condos. And so one of the things I was trying to do here is to just sort of explore some of the creative things you might want to do with some there's creative strategies in multifamily, just like there's a lot of creative strategies in single family. So what I'm going to do is just kind of introduce you to the concept of turning a community into condos and what that might entail. And then I just grabbed a property kind of off of an offering and just kind of put some numbers to it, just using an individual one. So this is not a great, when we get to that, it's not a great opportunity, but it's just the first one I came across that had some of the aspects would be looking for. So before you can actually, so a lot of the things we do with manufactured housing, it's because a lot of them are not very stable. We take them take them on in an owner finance way. Well, this is something where you really need to get the title to the community. And so you can either joint venture with other students or you can joint venture with the owner, but something you have to have the title to be able to do some of this. What we look for is a property with a number of vacant lots. And that if there are owner occupied homes, if there's a lot of owner occupied homes, we're going to need to have meetings to discuss after we have done a lot of the preliminary homework, because they're going to have to get on board too. It probably doesn't work as well with parks that have a lot of older homes or a lot of lot rentals. It could be really good for places that have vacant land to be developed. And I would start kind of small, looking for properties with 10 to 40 spaces. And you do want larger land or larger lots, because that's what people really want. If they're going to own their own land and the community or the home on it, then they're going to want to have a little bit of extra land with their home. And so we look for a little bit larger lots. And so that's just what I said here. I'm gonna check with the zoning and the land office about the idea of, now I'm not telling them what I'm doing. I'm just asking them if I could survey off, if they have any problems when we surveying off the properties into separate units, in case someday I wanted to sell one of those homes on a land home package. You would have to check with, this is going to take a fair amount of legal work. So you would have to, at some point, just have basic conversations with an attorney in the area as to whether you'd be taking this as a tenants in common or a fractionalized ownership. Now, originally, you're just going to buy it yourself. But as you condoize it, you are probably going to either need to turn it into a condo association, tenants in common, or fractionalized ownership. So you need to do a little homework before you'd be talking to a lot of a lot of attorneys. But when we actually get to the property, I think you might be able to see why one might want to think about this, particularly now when there is such an issue with people wanting to own their own home, and there's such a barrier to cost in getting into these. And something that I actually think we can. And when you actually look at the numbers, you're going to see it's not that expensive for people to do something like this, and you can still make somewhat of a profit. So before this to work, you have to have each of the lots surveyed off. So it would be clear what somebody owned, and you would sell them as lots, just like you sell a condo as an apartment unit. So I would go through the property, and I would look at how I would plot map these homes to see what this would look like. And one of the things you're paying attention to when you're doing that is roads and access to the homes on roads and what would need to be done. The other thing is a lot of these kind of properties are out of town a bit, and they're on well and septic. And so you would need to try and see what would happen. Is the well going to support these? What would you have to do with septics? And so you're just going to do a little bit of homework. So what I would be doing is I'd be going in like I'm going to buy the property itself. And this would be some of my due diligence that I'd be making sure I would be doing something a little bit different with. A lot of these parks have offices, they have playgrounds. And so you just need to see how you would probably have some kind of a common area that the whole group would own. All right, so some of the due diligence that I might do before I went too far down this road is would the residents that already live there be interested in something like this? And you're just going to have casual conversations, particularly with people that own their own homes. You would need to get a sense of what you can buy the park for and what you would need to sell each home for with the land and the home on it, and what those two together would cost, so that you could see if this is going to work. And you're obviously going to be comparing that to what starter homes or homes, kind of first time buyer homes in that area are going to cost, because that's kind of where your competition is going to be. You are probably in those vacant lots going to be bringing in new homes, and what those homes would sell for, and then what you would sell the land for on top of it, and can you make that work? You need to have a sense of the average income of the residents, both in that area and in that park, because they are in fact going to have to get some kind of we're going to probably owner finance them for the land, and the home is going to come from the manufacturer. But you need to make sure that there's enough people in the area that have an income that could afford something like this. After you've gone down the road a bit, you're probably going to need to sit down with one of the manufacturers in the area and see. So one of the keys to make this work is when you're buying homes in a community kind of package with some of these manufacturers like we talked about, is that they are selling to we're actually getting a dealer's license, and then we are marketing and selling the home to a homeowner, and the manufacturer is doing the loan with the homeowner, and we're guaranteeing that loan. So you have to make sure that the manufacturer is going to continue to be on board with that. And I think the way you're going to do that is that you're going to keep control of the ownership, until you have sold most of the homes on the property. A lot of your costs to do this are going to be in the legal, because I think you're going to have some extra legal costs here. You're going to have to do a different kind of pro forma. And if anybody's interested in this, I would be certainly most happy to help you kind of think this through. And you're going to have to look at the profits and see how that is going to work in your pro forma. There are some condo issues that we're going to have to work with. So most of the time in condos, there's a homeowners association. And we would stay in control of that homeowners association until probably about 80% of the homes have been sold. And then it goes to the condo board. You set up a condo association, but as long as you own homes, you stay on that condo board. So I said here until 70%, so 70 or 80%. You are going to have a condo association because truth of the matter is you're going to have to keep up common areas. If you have well and septic, chances are you're going to have some kind of a general contract for the well and septic. You're likely to have common area roads, common area lighting, stuff like that. So you're going to have to think about condo fees. The problem, as you know, most know with condos, is that the fees keep going up and up and up. And so you're going to have think through how do you can kind of control those costs. We're probably going to owner finance the lots. And we're going to be working with manufacturers on the homes. I would like to see if there is extra land in one of these deals. And so that if it works out, you can build more. And so when I'm doing my due diligence, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is, hey, Mr. Community, I have an extra 50 acres here. What would it take to develop them? And is that something that is feasible? You have to make sure that your current infrastructure, like well and septic, is set up so it can handle those extra homes if you decide to do that, and what's it going to cost. So there's a lot of things to be thinking about that are different than buying the park or the home. All right, now, so this is one of the things I wanted to just kind of show you. This is the park that I found, not looking very hard. It's in Cordell, Georgia. And that's about an hour south of Macon. It's 64 lots. They're asking 1.9 million. There are 34 homes on the lot, so it's about 66% occupied. 30 are park owned, so I can do whatever I need with those, and 4 are tenant owned. It's well and septic. The gross income was $345,000. The operating expenses are $54,000. Now, this is an example of where you probably have an owner who is doing a lot of the work because they have the expenses down at 15%. And your expenses are going to be at least 35%. So you're going to have to figure that out. But so if I had a 35% expenses, I'm probably going to have an NOI somewhere around 120, 125. And so I'm probably somewhere down in the 1.5 million range on this. But I remember I didn't do any due diligence on this. I just grabbed a park, and this is kind of what it looks like. I pulled off some pictures so you can see that there's some homes that the streets are paved, that they're fairly large lots. And it looks like it's not in bad shape. The homes are not terribly, terribly old. This one down here, can you see where my arrow is pointing?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That one is probably a 70s, early 80s model, but the rest of them look like they're 90s. This one is older. I just wanted to pick up some pictures of what some of these new homes look like. These are, this one here, these two are double sections, right? They have two sections, but they are still nice looking homes, yes?
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
right. So these are what the new ones look like. They are not anything like you kind of imagine a trailer to look like. And these are all Clayton models, just for whatever. All right.
They
So
look
here's,
really nice. That's not what I still even pictured at mobile home parks.
yeah, well, I think that that's the problem. A lot of people have very skewed views of what mobile home parks can really look like. They think about all these trailers. So we come back up here. This is a fairly nice looking home. These aren't too bad. This needs underpinnings, which means it needs skirting and things like this, but it doesn't look too bad either. All right. So what I was thinking is that we're probably going to be starting out with about 10 homes. So 10 homes with a dealer's license. So now without a dealer's license, I was looking online a little bit, and these single section or single wide homes sell between 120 and 160,000. But if you get a dealer's license, you can sell those same homes, that $120,000 house for 80,000 because they have such a markup on them. So with a dealer's license, these homes become a whole lot more affordable. So if you do 5 to 10 a year and a homeowner's buying them from the manufacturer, then you are it's probably going to take 5 to 10 years to fill this up. But if you're going to keep it and you're going to condoize it, that's probably doable. So I put, if you bought it here for 1.7 million, and I was being extra kind because I wouldn't pay 1.7 million for this, but just in case. So we're going to spend about 150,000 a year for 10 homes and getting them brought down the road and set up and have electric set up. But that $150,000 is reimbursed to you when the home sells. So you're paying the transportation costs and the cost to get it set up initially, but that is all sent back to you when the home is sales. So this is the recoverable cost. So I'm thinking you probably got some site prep. And you don't have to do this all in 1 year, but you probably got at least $2,000 a lot to what you need to do to upgrade the site a little bit. So the cost for the condo documents, legal fees and all that, I'm guessing to be somewhere, all the legal stuff, as well as the bank and kinds of stuff, it's probably going to be somewhere around 50,000. And the sales and marketing costs are going to be somewhere around 30,000 to get these sold. All right. So what does the deal look like to me? Oh, let me I'm sorry, let me. Let me go back. I'm gonna drop out of this for just a minute and see if I can edit this a little bit. So you can actually see what I'm doing here.
Thank you for doing this, Nicole, using an example. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, back we go. All right. So it's on interstate. So to me, this is what the deal looks like without doing much homework, right? So I spent probably an hour kind of looking at this, maybe a little bit more. It's on interstate. It's right, this Cordell is on Interstate 75. the total cost, including purchase price and the transport and all this, is somewhere around $2 million. The average cost for a home in Cordell is starting at $120,000 for older mobile homes that sit on their own land, up to about $200,000 for a starter home. So that's kind of the bracket you're looking at. So we're going to sell the new home, just the home, for between $80,000 and $120,000 a home, right? But that is a loan. We don't have to put out the money for that. That loan is going to be with the manufacturer, and they're going to be paying them. But we still have to think about it, because what our homeowner is going to be doing is paying them and us. And so I've sort of looked at, if you have a loan of 100,000 at 8.5% interest for 25 years, it's about $800 a month. If I am spending $30,000 per lot for 50 homes sites, that is, I'm sorry, per lot. That was actually, I goofed there. My brain wasn't working in. So if I'm paying 120 for 50 homes, that's 8.5 million. So, but if we're selling the site at 50,000, at the unit at 50,000 at 8% for 20 years, it's $408.12 a month, $418 a month, right? And we're owner financing that. So I want you to keep that in mind. So they're probably going to put about 5,000 down. So the total payment is, when we add this thing together with the condo fees, is about $1,300 a month. If you do this over 5 to 10 years at 5 homes a year, the upfront costs really aren't so much. So if you were to just sell the land at $50,000 a site, you're at $2.5 million, which isn't a great profit, right? Because we're in for this for about 2 million. But if you add the owner finance in stuff, and in that, you're going to double that, because what people are actually paying in interest is about $49,000 over that 20 years. So if you do the math, it's 5,000 down, and you finance 45,000. So you're going to get 5,000 a piece. At 8% for 20 years, it's $376 a month plus 100. All right. And plus you're making $45,000 in interest. The average cost, because the homes we're going to buy are 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And the average rent for a 3-bedroom apartment ranges from $900 to $1,200 a month. So they're paying a little bit more, but they're buying a house and the land on it. And if I was really doing this, I would be trying to find other ways to, so this isn't a particularly great deal. I'm just grabbing the first one I found. I would probably keep 10 homes as rentals and control the condo association until all were sold. And your profits over time are going to be, the the 500,000 plus the $45,000 in interest times 50 homes. Somebody have a calculator right there. I thought I had done that, but hadn't. So what is $45,000 times 50?
$2.25.
So over the time you're holding it, you're making another 2.5 million. And that doesn't include the rents, right? So, and this is what really, without me looking very hard or negotiating any price, or really, I don't know anything about the condoizing costs anyway. But I thought I wanted to just kind of show you something you could do, particularly right now, when there is such a need where most people can't afford to buy their own home. And if I go back and look at these homes, I don't think, and you kind of set up when you bring them in just a little bit of landscaping. These are not something that people would be ashamed to live in and own as a home. At least I wouldn't. All right, so I've kind of changed all of this just a little bit. So you can still get the online course that has the 36 modules with about 60 hours of material. If you're interested, go to passivecashflowforlife.com and look at events. And that's the cost for the class, $19.97. It's not a class now, it's an online course of 60 hours of material for 3 payments of $747. We record all of these classes and have done for the past year. So if you're interested in kind of going back and looking to see what we've done in the past, we have a YouTube channel, and that's kind of our YouTube channel address. And this class and other classes are up. This class will be up by close of business Thursday or Friday. So you can go look at it. And at this point, I'm just going to turn it over for questions that anybody might have. And I'm going to kind of stop sharing. And just kind of let people ask any questions they may have. I'm sorry, I don't know how I did on time. I went over as usual.
No, you did great. It's only 10 after.
I'm supposed to be done at 7. All right, any questions from anybody?
I'm always afraid to
And
jump
is
in.
the process for the people applying the for the homes, like for home ownership, is that a similar process, or is that like something where you'd have to be more lenient, or is it just because it's just a lower price point? It's still the same rules, it's just a lower price point?
Okay, I don't know that I'm quite understanding what you mean by meaning more lenient.
Like, are you looking at a credit score and at the loan,
Mm-mm.
just like you would for like a regular people do for a regular home,
No,
or is
it's,
it?
go ahead.
And well, yeah, that's pretty much my question. Or is it, since they're more affordable, they'll qualify because the monthly payments are less?
So here's the thing is that the qualifications for this is really going to come from the manufacturer. And because I am basically co-signing for their loan, so that they don't pay, I'm going to kind of step into the loan, and then the homeowner would be paying me, and or I would be foreclosing on them for the manufacturer, and then selling it again. So it is, and because I'm co-signing it, they as long as somebody has a credit score in the mid-6s, they're probably pretty well to go with those manufacturers. I mean, you'd want to make sure, the main thing, you'd want to make sure they have the income to cover the home price plus the lot that they're going to be paying, right? But I certainly think it's something to think about as another strategy, as another possible strategy. That answer your question, Freddie?
Sorry, I didn't hear that last.
I said, did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
That's a cute picture of your son, Mel, and you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on Mel's Zoom right now, so yeah, I think I have one like that too. But thank you.
Anybody else?
So would this be a good option for JVing with the actual owner and showing them how they could create more income with less hassle, and then you would just split the profits?
I think it should be. I think it could be. I think you have to kind of get a sense of who the owner is, because if it's an older person who kind of doesn't know real estate, I can see them kind of going, oh, it's another one of them, their scam kinds of things.
Okay.
But yeah, I certainly think you could. And then you could get in pretty light. I'm sure this guy, because this had a price reduction on it.
Hmm.
And just looking at it, I suspect because of the expenses that this seller has had it for a long time and they self-manage.
Makes sense. And then the $2,000 per pad, existing pad, what is that, to change out the pedestal or just clean it up or?
I just put that money in there because I don't know anything about the sites.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of, I don't know if you have a pedestal with 220.
Hmm.
I don't know, if you need to put in a parking space. I don't know what kind of septic. So if you have lines, you can't, if you have septic lines, you can't park on top of them.
Right.
And so I just don't know. So I just grabbed a number out of my head.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for the people that don't know what a pedestal is, do you want to share with them?
Why don't you share with them? I'm tired of talking for a minute.
So a pedestal is basically, um, it looks like, at least the ones that I've seen, it looks like a box sticking out of the ground about 3 or 4 feet high, and basically the power comes up into it. And then the power in that pedestal can be different based on when it was actually installed and what was asked. So some of them might have 60 amps, some might have 100 amps, some might have the newer ones, maybe 220 or something like that. With the idea being obviously that the more amps you have, the more electronic equipment, like electric stove, which I think draws like 20 amps if I'm remembering right, hot water heater, refrigerator, heat, air conditioning. So obviously the more amperage you have, the more amenities the person can actually have in the home. But again, when you go and look at a mobile home park, you want to try and check out what the amperage is for each of one of those pedestals, to make sure that if you do bring in new homes, and you'd have to find out from Clayton what the requirements are, that A, do you have enough amperage in that pedestal, or B, if you don't, then obviously you have to build in the cost of having to run new power. And where do you run that new power from? Can you run it just from the street? Do you have to go out to the main road and run it throughout the entire park? So just something to think about. But that's basically what a pedestal is where the power comes in for that specific lot.
Yeah. And I would probably start, frankly, with a lot of the homes that are already there that the park owns, just to get this going.
Hmm.
And you could sell those for less and recoup a lot of your down payment or a lot of your money, because now you can charge whatever you want for those. You've got basically half the park filled.
Right.
So you're gonna have to pull some of the ones that are older
Hmm.
that you really wouldn't want in a newer park. But you could start where you are and spend 3 or 4 years just doing those and getting those stabilized and maybe bring in 2 new ones a year. So I think there's a lot of different approaches you could take to something like this. So all I really wanted to do here was to show you kind of a more creative strategy to think about, as a possibility.
This is great. I don't think I've ever heard you talk about this.
We have talked about it a couple of times, but I was probably just kind of in passing.
Okay.
So I don't know that I've ever really gone through any numbers or anything like that.
For
Have you done this, or do you know anybody that has?
There's actually quite a few people are starting to do this, and I looked at this with one of the parks that I bought, um, and I'm actually considering, because it's one of them is pretty well filled, but it's got really big lots and nice homes, and so I'm considering doing that after I get this last park stabilized. But it will be all on me rather than using, because the units are already filled, and so I would just be kind of starting where I am without having to bring in a lot of new homes. But a number of those have loans with a manufacturer, but it's not Clayton. I picked somebody who's so these parks are in Montana, and so you look for manufacturers that are not too far from there. And this manufacturer is actually out of Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Are they like super insulated? I mean, it doesn't get cold there?
Yeah, sure it does.
How are they insulated? Like the older ones?
Because it's just like insulating a basement or anything. You kind of have you are putting different kinds of skirting around it, but you're using heat tape and all sorts of things like that to kind of heat the pipes and putting insulation around it. And then you're trying, if it gets really cold, you tell people to keep the lines open by dripping water a little bit so that they don't freeze. But we used to do that in the West all the time when I was a kid. If it's going to get cold, you just turned the water on a little bit so it would drip all night so you didn't freeze the pipes.
Smart.
People from the north are used to doing that.
Mm.
It's all you southern burbs that are
Well, I
haven't
mean,
heard of
Maryland
this.
gets cold, but I
Not
can't
like
imagine
that.
being in a
Not like
mobile home in Montana. Be a little
Well,
Yeah,
chilly.
Montana gets cold, but I grew up in Idaho and it gets cold there too. So
Yeah.
Mobile home parks are very popular in Maine and Vermont.
yeah.
They can be super cold. And then I think I mentioned this before, but it's kind of, nurses and police officers and teachers and stuff like that, that is the demographic that lives in these mobile homes. And, I don't know if you've been in one recently or ever been in one, but if you get a chance to stop in at a mobile home lot or something like that and kind of take a peek inside, some of these are really, really nice inside.
Yeah, and the nice thing about community models is what they call the ones that we are involved in as community owners actually have better grade materials. Because they know a lot of us are kind of picky, and so they just have upgraded the materials a little bit. So they're actually the ones that are made in the cold climates have different kinds of windows than the ones that are down in the south, etc. So they're hardened a little bit for the weather more.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Anybody else? All right, let's open up. Anybody else have any other questions that, and kind of most everybody here were people that were on at our meeting. So if anybody has any questions from that or other real estate related questions, James will be happy to answer them.
I did want to, for those of you that are local, and in terms of mobile home parks, Route 1 has a bunch of them. I know there's some out in Pasadena. And if you live where I live in Ellicott City or anywhere around here, right behind the Costco, there's a very, very nice mobile home park that has been there. I talked to one lady that actually lived in there. We did some work for her kind of as a community project, and she was one of the original owners. And I think that park has been there since the 1960s. So before even Columbia existed, she was like the first home in that area. But it's, they've got high-end landscaping companies going in there and, doing the lawns and stuff like that. It's really, really nice. And you would think, wow, in Howard County, how can you afford that? But they're very nice. And the one was on Route 1, you can see they have a lot of additions on them. A lot of them have porches or, an addition on the back or something like that. So, they're definitely not what I originally thought mobile home parks would be like. So I don't know if any of you were like that as well, but I just had a totally different picture. I didn't understand the model at all. And obviously now I do, but it's really quite an education if you actually go out and actually visit them.
And I almost bought one up around Havre de Grace. So there's a lot over on the Eastern Shore, frankly. And
Yep.
there's quite a number in and around Cumberland and that area.
Mhm.
So you may not see them in kind of in the urban areas, but you go out a little bit and they are nice, affordable housing. And that's the key here. It's affordable housing.
It is pretty interesting because I looked at two in Hagerstown years ago, and one of them was very nice. And then the other one is what you and I would actually consider a trailer park. It's
Yeah,
like
there are
night
trailer
and
parks.
day, kind of thing. So, but both within like 10 miles of each other. So it's pretty interesting. Any other questions on this or anything else multifamily related? For those of you that came to the class, did you go home and go straight to bed on Sunday like I did? or close to getting home?
Oh yeah, I crashed for sure.
I was wiped out. I
The
think you all
math.
went home and partied for like 3 or 4 hours and, got to bed like at 1 and then she was up at 4 and, she's got all the energy.
That's where all my energy went. She took it with her.
That's right.
Funny.
All right, well, we don't need to belabor a point. So we have, Jane and Sharon are here in about 7 or 8 minutes, or I'm gonna be talking about single family stuff and a deal that they just finished. And it has on the market, so I don't know, we can just conversation, you can go take a quick break, or let me just turn it over to Jane and Sharon right now.